You know what that is, don't you? That's what we used to be educationally. Used to be number one. Used to be if you headed off to school and you had a Commodore 64, you were state of the art. 64K of memory, what could you possibly do with that? Used to be if you wanted to come up to drop out of high school, you could find a pretty good job in the textile mills or furniture family. Used to be you wanted to come up to Stokes County, find a pretty good location here. Used to be we were number one. Let me show you some numbers we are today. How do you like the sounds of USA, USA? We're number 14. But we're number 17 or 25. If those were soccer rankings, it wouldn't bother me a bit. That's not what they are. Every 3 years, there's an internationally recognized organization that takes a look at the comparative skills of 15-year-olds in education circles. 54 different countries. 2 years ago, last time it was done, 54 different countries, really 40 because the bottom 14 of them don't really measure up. Let's say 40 countries. U.S. 15-year-olds were 15th in terms of reading proficiency, 17th in terms of science proficiency, 25th in terms of math proficiency. Of 40. USA, USA, we're number 25. That's the sort of company we're keeping educationally. Some of those are nice places to visit, but that's not the educational company I want to keep. You see so much of economic comparisons today. Look at America over the last 10, 15, 20 years. We still rank pretty well in many cases because we're riding the coattails of the last generation. In terms of what we're accomplishing, what our leadership is producing, it starts looking like that. And if you want to turn that around, if you want American greatness, we have the business community saying, that starts right here. That's where investments need to be made. The quality of education that goes on in early education directly affects the quality of kids that the Stokes County schools have to work with, in much the same way that what goes on through K through 12 education drives the quality of your workforce that comes out or goes into post-secondary. It is a continuum. Now, hear a lot of this. Times are tight. It's tough to really look at this. I get that. I have an appreciation for elected officials at any level. I understand their job is tough. But historically, that's a cop-out. And I'll show you why. This report. If a foreign power attempted to impose on America the mediocre educational performance that exists today, we could consider that an act of war. That didn't come out last week, last month, last year, 2 presidents ago. That report was issued in 1983, the first term of President Reagan, by a commission put together by President Reagan. And since then, we've been hit by one series of reports after another. All of them talking about America falling behind. Most of them talking about the role of early education as a way of turning that around. Rising Above the Gathering Storm came out about 7 years ago, updated last year, rapidly approaching Category 5. And no, this is not particularly hurricane country up here, but Category 5 refers to a hurricane that looks like that on a radar screen, or like that on the ground. The last report that came out, look in terms of American competitiveness, which was taking a look at how we're investing in corporate research and development, education, early education versus other people, 40 different groups, says that overall we're 6th. That's okay, I guess. But the same report then took a look at what's happened in the last 10 years. Okay, it's not surprising anybody that China is number 1. So where is the United States on that list? I know we're, let's see, we're 40th out of 40. That's what we're doing. Here, we're riding the coattails of people who've invested before. 40th out of 40. One report after another. We're falling behind. We need to invest. And what's the American reaction been? It looks like this. Never has there been a better example of what Pogo had to say. Complacency is a killer. Time to wake up. Time to insist on looking long term. Anybody tells you that, as soon as the economy turns around, we'll be fine, tell them they got their head buried in the sand. In fact, that's sort of the Charlotte version of that. One of the reasons I do not like parts of Charlotte is it's a pretty pretentious community. People always clean it up. One of the reasons I like coming up to the upper part of North Carolina, you ask a question here, you're going to get a straight answer. So let me give you the Stokes County translation of that slide. Here's where we've had our head. And it's time to be frank about it. That's a message that needs to resonate in hallways in Washington, in Raleigh, in boardrooms across Stokes County. You can talk about, you do need great roads, you need water and sewer, you need sites. But your biggest asset or biggest liability going forward is your intellectual capital. Everything is global. Jobs that we've lost in North Carolina, those kinds of jobs, by and large, are not coming back, although some of the furniture jobs are. The more that you can promote innovation and entrepreneurship, the better off you are. Knowledge infrastructure is key to growth. I'm going to blow through a couple of these because I am running out of town. Hello. So I don't want to abuse your time. I'm going to go through this one as well. And I'll pose a question to you. Who do you think these people are? I'll give you three choices. Are they members of their respective delegations to the United Nations? Members of their Olympic team? Or 93% of the winners of the Intel National Science Search competition last year? They are, of course, C. All first-generation Americans. Why aren't there more of us second or third or fourth-generation Americans? What's happened to us? We're not driven. We don't invest in our kids. We don't appreciate it. Who here is old enough to remember who that's an advertisement for? Thank you. I was afraid I was the only one. Geritol for those youngsters. If you had tired blood, Geritol. Those kids, it's our national Geritol. Thank God we have an influx of first and second generation Americans, because the rest of us don't seem to be doing too well. Two last points. Does anybody think, look at the way that we spend our dollars. How much is spent on the judicial side versus education. Does anybody think something wrong with that? Here's a group that does. Fight crime, invest in kids, more than 5,000 men and women of law enforcement. They say this, that if you could increase graduation rates in North Carolina by 10%, you could prevent more than 100 murders and 5,000 aggravated assaults every year. Well, that's all well and good, but what does that have to do with early education? It has this to do with it. Men and women of law enforcement say that early education is one of the most effective strategies to increase graduation rates. And then there is this argument. Mission readiness, retired senior military men and women, including Hugh Shelton of North Carolina, retired chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. You can see what they're in the business of, ensuring the national security and prosperity of the United States. They issued a report last year, ready, willing, and unable to serve. 72% of Americans 17 to 24 do not qualify for military service, in no small part due to their lack of education. These military men and women who have put their lives on the line for us, have put other lives in jeopardy to protect us, talk about investing in the next generation of Americans as a matter of national security, and that includes fully funding early education. The noted author, now late author and media critic, once defined children thusly. Children are the messages we send to a time we will not see. And ultimately the question boils down to this. What kind of messages will we be sending? What will those messages say about us? What will they say about our children? What will they say about this nation's commitment to its future? 15 years ago, Tom Brokaw wrote a book called The Greatest Generation. That book's going to be written 100 years from now from us. What's the title going to be? Right now it'll be None Too Friendly. Our parents left us a great America. They invested in us. Their grandparents invested in them. It's time for us to pony up. The cheapest way is not always the best way, and sometimes the consequences of that are severe indeed. We need men and women of vision who can look past their next term in office and realize that the consequences of some decisions are so great that the payoff may not be there in their term of office, maybe not even there in their lifetime. But it's a commitment that we need to make, as our predecessors made for us. You've got a very highly respected member of the North Carolina House of Representatives from this part of the country. I understand he's in the room. He's a key player, and he's young enough to have vision. We need to convince more folks like him that early education ain't warm and fuzzy. It's bottom line economics, and the case is made by the military, the economic, the public safety, and other communities. I appreciate your time this afternoon. Thank you.